listeners and viewers. Welcome to Kaduna State Ministry of Education Radio and TV e-learning program designed for our SS3 and other students staying at home due to the coronavirus pandemic. The present administration, under the able leadership of His Excellency, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, is positioned, as always, to ensure that under his leadership, our students are not left behind in all areas of human endeavors, especially education. Kaduna State is the center of learning. Therefore, we want to ensure that our students excel in their forthcoming examinations and beyond. Students and other learners at home are given this opportunity in order to continue learning, as education is a continuous process. Different subjects will be taught in this program to assist students to perform excellently in the forthcoming Senior School Certificate examination being conducted by NECO and WAEC as soon as schools reopen. Teachers making presentations will always provide their names and phone numbers during each presentation, and they can be contacted for questions, further explanations, and/or clarifications. The following numbers and contacts can also be reached for expression of any concern or observation: 090-865-00545 or 080-383-62072. Our website is www.education.kdsg.gov.ng. Our email education@kdsg.gov.ng or education.kdsg@gmail.com. Our YouTube channel, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Our Twitter handle @Kaduna_MOE. Or our Facebook page, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Stay safe, stay at home, and learn well. Thank you, happy listening, and happy viewing.
My dear learners at home, I'm happy to be with you again on another segment of the e-learning on English language. Today I'm going to take you through an interesting topic which I have chosen to call a clause. A clause is a comprehension. We have had reasons to solve comprehension passages, but this pattern of comprehension appears on your objective questions. So most times you find yourself, because you don't know what your answers would be, you will kind of go singing tinini tanana biko biko Maria baby na sokoto miyangwas. Try in your luck. But does this method really give you the right answers? If you think it does, please recheck and correct it. So let's move on to our topic for today. A clause is a form of written examination on a comprehension passage which learners are required to provide words that have been removed from sentences in the passage. This is done to help the learners demonstrate their level of knowledge and understanding of a text. This forms part 2 of the English paper 2, objective questions of the SS3 final examination. How do we solve a closed text? Solving a closed text requires one's ability to understand the context and vocabulary in order to identify the correct language. In other words, for you to be able to understand a closed text, you need to understand the field of endeavor that the passage is centered on. Is it talking about animals? If yes, what category of animals is it talking about? If we are talking about birds, it means you're supposed to restrict your options to birds. You need to know how birds operate, how they are formed, how they reproduce, where they live, how they feed, and so on and so forth. If you are able to do this, it means you have restricted yourself to a particular content, and we call this content-specific vocabulary. No wonder in our syllabus we have words associated to different fields of endeavors. If you are able to do this, it means you have solved more than half of your problem. Solving a closed text requires the ability to understand context and vocabulary in order to identify the correct language or parts of speech that belong in the removed parts of the passage. This means that A closed test is a form of reading comprehension that involves having the learner being tested supply words which have been systematically removed. Remember, we have said that a closed test is a comprehension passage. Now, what makes it a close? Your examiner will systematically remove words from this passage and expects you to supply the answers. By the time these words are removed, gaps are created, and these gaps are what you're supposed to fill using the correct options. Ways to solve a text. 1. Thoroughly read the passage as a whole without attempting to fill in any word. Have the discipline to read through the entire passage first. Remember, this pattern of exams comes along with your objective questions. And because it is a passage, there's a need for you to read everything about the passage from the beginning to the end. So always endeavor to read the passage as a whole. Don't bother about the words that have been removed. Just patiently read it and try to see if you'll be able to understand the content of that passage. So always have the discipline to read through the entire passage first. 2, as you read, check the tone of the passage. How do you check the tone of a passage? Is the story a happy one? Is it a comedy? Is it a tragedy? Is it trying to pause a problem? Is it polite? Is it harsh? So by the time you are able to identify the tone of this passage, you have as well solved part of your problem. 3, link the phrases together to get a clear picture. Remember, we said in a closed passage, some words are systematically removed. And the first thing you're supposed to do as you attempt your closed questions is to read the entire passage, not minding the gaps that have been created. So if you do that, read it and try to connect the gaps created. Try to connect the phrases and see if you will get reasonable sentences that will be able to convey meaning. 4, identify keywords that are linked to the gaps in the passage. What are the keywords? There's always a word before the gap, and there's always another word after the gap. So try to identify these words and understand what they stand to mean in that passage. Then try to see if you will get a word that is close to it. It could be a word that is an opposite. It could be a word that is describing a particular scene or object. So it depends on what the passage says. 5, think of the most suitable words that fit in the passage. That's what I just explained. Try to check your keywords, the words before and the words after the gap. Then try to see if you will get suitable words that will fit into this passage. Then from the options given, attempt to eliminate the wrong ones. Most times your options are lettered A to E. From A to E, it is certain that only one answer is correct. There are times that 2 answers may be right, which means you stand to get a bonus there. But where you have one answer that is correct, it means you have to try as much as possible to eliminate the wrong answers. How do you do that? You ask yourself the question, gap 1, does this word fit? If I link it to the keywords before and after, does it fit? If it doesn't fit, you leave it. You have eliminated. You go on the next option. That's what you keep doing until you finally get to the right answer. When you're done doing that, take time, go through your work at least once. You may find yourself in an exam situation, but it is just right that you endeavor to go through what you have written. Otherwise, mistakes can occur, and where you are not able to identify your mistakes, it means your examiner is the one that takes your grades. It is very important to use close context clues to determine the missing words in a close comprehension passage because content-specific vocabulary is reinforced in it. From the beginning of this lesson, I mentioned it. When you are going content-specific, it means you are to dwell on a particular subject that concerns a field of endeavor. For example, words associated to a family. When we are talking about words associated with a family, you don't go into the community. You restrict yourself to just the family. And your family is a very good place to start on. It means you will continue to use the words that go around within the family. For example, in the following passage, the numbered letters indicate missing words. Against each number in the list below the passage, 5 choices are offered in columns lettered A to E. For each gap, choose the word that is the most suitable to fill the gap. Much has happened in the intervening years. It has become harder to discern the true meaning of human cloning. We have in some sense been softened up to the idea through movies, cartoons, jokes, and intermittent commentary in the mass media. Some serious, most lighted. We have become donation and surrogate pregnancy. Animal biotechnology has transgenic animal and a science of genetic engineering. Easily transferable to humans. Even more important, changes in the broader culture now make it to express a common and respectful understanding of sexuality, procreation, emerging life, family and meaning of motherhood, fatherhood, and links between generations. Now, let's go through our options. Remember, the instruction says the options are lettered A to E. Now, for gap 1, we have the options not easy, not easier, 2, not softer, and airy. For gap 2, we have mindful, aware of, careful of, accustomed to, kept on. 3, grown, given, yielded, yielded to, and flow. 4, strange, new, matching, burgeoning, becoming. 5, manageable, much easier, surprisingly, vastly more difficult, and attractive. Now we have the answers here. A, we'll take B, which is not easier. That's for gap 1. For 2, we take D, which is accustomed to. For 3, we take C, yielded. 4, the option is D, burgeoning. 5, B, much easier. Now, let's fill in the gaps with the suitable options. Remember, we have gotten a solution, the answers have been displayed, so let's see how they fit into the passage. Much has happened in the intervening years. It has become harder, not easier, to discern the true meaning of human cloning. We have in some sense been softened up to the idea through movies, cartoons, jokes, and intermittent commentary in the mass media, some serious, most lighted. We have become accustomed to donation and surrogate pregnancy. Animal biotechnology has yielded transgenic animal burgeoning science of genetic engineering, easily transferable to humans. Even more important, changes in the broader culture now make it much easier to express a common and respectful understanding of sexuality, procreation, emerging life, family and meaning of motherhood, fatherhood, and the links between generations. Now, the explanation to this passage is very simple and clear. The paragraph talks about human cloning, and the author is pessimistic about the growing age as it has learned a lot of things through media. So, there is a soft linkage between the generations which is overwhelming. Now, looking at the first paragraph, the first gap The clue before the gap is harder. Remember we said we'll check context clue, the word before and the word after. So the clue before the gap is harder. This means we need to choose a word opposite to harder. So not easier is the right option. In the second gap, accustomed to fits well. In the third gap, yielded is a better option than others. In the fourth gap,